Welcome to the Hive, and we are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and something else. I don't know what it is, but we are going to have a good show today, and I hope everything works out just fine. And we're going to go ahead and talk about a living legend. Most of you well know this writer. He's a very special writer in the modern era. He was a pioneer. And if you like the show, if you're on YouTube, just go ahead and like at the bottom of the page. And we talk Speedway. We will talk Speedway today. And mainly we're going to talk about Wild Bill Cody. Wild Bill Cody was born in Orange County, California. And he was primarily raised in Laguna Beach. He is a surfer dude. No, he's not. He's a motorcycle guy. And he went ahead and went to Laguna Beach High School. Do you know the Laguna Beach High School? Wild Bill Cody went there to the Laguna Beach High School. And he wanted to be a student, a teacher. He wanted to be a teacher, not a student. He was a student. And he went to college at the OCC. Do you know the OCC, the Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa? He wanted to be a school teacher. That was his dream. And he went ahead and he was in the early days of the revival of the Speedway, and he was making $1,000 a night. And so he said to himself, like, why do I want to be a college teacher when I can make $1,000 a night? So Bill Cody went ahead and he decided he was going to be a Speedway racer, not a school teacher. So that's exactly why. And because he got paid more money when he was racing Speedway. So Cody is a businessman. If you don't know that, Bill Cody is a businessman, a very good businessman. So he grew up in Laguna Beach, and I saw his house, his little house that he grew up in and his parents lived in. And Bill, I think, owns that today. It might be a rental, but I'm not sure. And his parents didn't like Speedway or didn't like motorcycles. And they said, you will not own a motorcycle. And Bill's like, please, I want the motorcycle. And his parents said, no, you're not going to have a motorcycle. So Bill went ahead and bought a motorcycle, and he hiding it from his parents. And Bill was a sneaky, smart guy. He knew how to hide things from his parents. Hopefully not his wife, but he hid the motorcycle because they didn't like it. They didn't want Bill to ride motorcycles. His first bike was a Honda 250cc Scrambler. It was a street bike, and then Bill didn't want a street bike. He wanted a dirt bike. So he stripped the fenders and all the lights and stuff like that, and he made it into a flat tracker. Bill built a racing bike out of a street bike, and he went ahead and started racing it up El Toro Raceway every weekend. Laguna Beach is very close to El Toro Raceway, so that was his home track. But Bill raced at lots of tracks. Bill was riding all over. He was riding at Trojan Speedway, Prado, Elsinore, and the Paris Speedway. Bill went ahead and was racing all over the place, and he was a hardcore motorcycle racer. He got really good. Bill became a very good motorcycle racer because he was racing legends like the Rocket, Rick Woods. Rick was also racing that time in flat track and TT all over the place. And Bill Cody and Rick Woods had it out on the racetrack when they were very young riders. So a lot of these guys grew up together. They just all were into TT, and then they moved over to Speedway later because there was money. So that's exactly what happened. And then later, Bill moved up to the 650cc class. He started racing the long tracks. People asked Bill, like, why do you race the long tracks? And Bill said, because it's really fast around those long tracks, really fast. Bill liked that one. He was a speed demon, and he was really good. So Bill also raced at Carlsbad and OCIR, and he raced road racing Did you know Bill was a road racer? But he didn't like it. So he went ahead and said, nah, I don't like the road racing, even though it's really fast. Maybe he didn't like being on the concrete when he was riding. I'm not sure. It's scary riding on road racing. It's really fast, especially when you fall. But anyways, Bill went ahead and quit the road racing, and he went ahead and started going back into flat track. In 1967, he started racing professional flat track TT at the Ascot Park in Gardena, California. Do you know the Ascot Park in Gardena, California? It's not there no more, so don't worry about it. And he was racing the half mile, and Bill was really fast. He was a half mile racer on the dirt. He liked to slide those bikes. A lot of these guys did. And in our last live stream, we talked about another track mongler who liked to slide speedway bikes, and that was Slidin' Sonny Nutter. Even in his name, he has the name Slidin' and Sonny Nutter. And Sonny Nutter liked to race at Ascot too. We talked about that in one of our last vlogs. And Bill went ahead and got his first uniform, his first set of leathers, one-piece leathers from who? Slidin' Sonny Nutter. And so Bill went ahead and he knew Sonny Nutter pretty well, and he bought his uniform. And, we buy used uniforms when we start off and buying our first. I bought a used uniform too from an old Speedway rider from the original days in 1969 or 19. Ron Taylor. Do you know him? I went up to Trabuco Canyon, and he's a little guy, and I'm kind of a tall guy. And so I said, I will take a Speedway uniform, anything. And I put the uniform on, and I was like, whoa. I have a pair of leathers. They don't fit me, but I have a pair of leathers. And so anyways, when you get your first uniform, hey, you don't care. You just want a Speedway uniform. That's really cool. And Sonny and Wild Bill Cody, they shared the same TT sponsor. So that was really cool. They were on the same TT team at Ascot Park. And sometimes they shared the same motorcycle. Sonny Nutter and Wild Bill Cody, they would like one race would be Bill Cody, and then next race would be Sonny Nutter. They share the bike, they fuel the bike, and then next race Bill Cody. That was like what the Bass brothers did back in the Whiteman Stadium with their JP. Steve would ride, and then they'd fuel up, and then Mike would ride, and then they'd fuel up, and Steve would. They shared motorcycles. Same with Sonny Nutter and Wild Bill Cody. But Wild Bill Cody wasn't named Wild Bill Cody. He was just Bill Cody back in those days. So that was pretty cool. And they were really good. They were track champions over at Ascot Park. And I think Evel Knievel was racing TT in those days. And that was pretty wild. But in 1968, a year later, Bill Cody moved up in class to the 750cc bikes. Those were the big boy bikes. And Bill moved up to pro. He was a top pro. He was racing against all the top riders in the nation. He raced against Mert Lawwell and all these guys, Gene Romero, and just all the flat track legends. And Bill Cody was doing really well. And Bill got second place in the Houston Astrodome in '68. That was a big championship race. He got second place amongst all those top riders, so he was really smoking good. And then he got third overall in Portland and Santa Rosa. So Bill went ahead and got second place, and then a couple third places overall. And then he got fourth place in the Sacramento Mile, the big Sacramento Mile, very fast. He got fourth place overall against the very top pros. So Bill was just an awesome TT rider. And Bill went ahead and got, top 10 that year. Bill Cody was top 10 of the top pros in the 750 class. And he rode, I think, the Harley Davidson. Bill was one of those Harley Davidson riders like Mert Lawwell and all those really top riders. Bill was a Harley dude, so that was cool. And then the next year, actually he rode a little bit of the Whiteman Stadium. I couldn't find a lot of information about Bill riding at Whiteman. He maybe rode a race or two or checked it out. He wasn't a regular, but maybe he kind of dabbled a little bit. Maybe got his feet wet. And so he liked it. He liked Speedway. So in 1969, he was there at the opening of the Costa Mesa Speedway in Costa Mesa, California. He was at the original opening night, and Bill did really good. He loved it because he would race in front of an average of 5,000 fans. At first, Costa Mesa, they had 2,000, so they had to build bleachers to get like 3,000. And then they had 3,000. There was lots of people around at Costa Mesa. And then they had to go to 5,000 and 6. Now it's 6,500. And they had like 5,000 or more people going to the races. And it became really good job because they went ahead and they averaged all those fans. And the money was really great at Costa Mesa. The riders made a big money. It was the glory day, the heyday of Speedway back in 1969. That was the early days of Speedway when Speedway had money and it was really growing big. It was the glory day of the sport. So that was really good. And Bill actually became really good. They raced on Tuesday nights in Ventura. It's always been Tuesday nights at Ventura Speedway. And then Wednesday nights in the old days in 1969, they raced at Bakersfield, not San Bernardino, but Bakersfield. Where the hell is Bakersfield? It's up north from the south. Bakersfield is a patch. And they raced. Diggerhelm raced over there at Bakersfield every Wednesday night. I'm sure that if some guys had to go to school the next day, going all the way to Bakersfield and coming back to Southern California is like, you get home like 6 a.m. and then you have to go to school at 8 o'clock, no sleeping. So that was really hard. And they eventually switched Bakersfield to Saturday nights. So it was Wednesday nights at the beginning. So that was kind of interesting. I didn't know that one. And so also Thursday nights has always been the Irwindale Raceway. Do you know the Irwindale Raceway? That was a fun track. Yeah, all the riders liked that track. It was just amazing. It was a little bit longer, had a lot of dirt, and it was really fun. It was a ripping track. And they went ahead and closed the Irwindale track and all the Irwindale, like the drag racing and stuff, and they built a Miller Brewing Company. I think we should all go over there and tear that brewery down and bring back the Irwindale Raceway. I think we should get rid of that beer place. I'm not really a beer drinker, so let's get rid of that beer and let's go racing. I don't think we can do that, but it's a good idea. And Friday night was where everybody went to Friday night. That was at the Costa Mesa Speedway, the bull ring at Costa Mesa. It was just the glory day at the Speedway. And it was like where the surfers were, all the chicks went. It was like the hangout. Everybody went to Costa Mesa. And they had lots of people. It was exciting. They had lots of girls. They had great racing. They even had some fights in the stands. They had the mud flying in the people's faces, and they had the smell of the castor oil, the full smell of the castor oil. Do you remember that? I do. That was nice. So the Speedway had it all. It had like the action, the mud, the smell, the girls. I was a little young for that, but they had the fights and they had all the stuff going on, the drunks and the people going crazy. And it was a lot of fun, Costa Mesa in those days. It was really cool. And Saturday night, they raced in Indio, California. Do you know where Indio, California is? It's like past Palm Springs if you go on like the 10 freeway and keep going out in the middle of the desert, out in the middle of nowhere. They raced Indio on Saturday night and they stopped racing that. There's no such thing as Indio anymore, but I thought that was pretty funny. They had an Indio Speedway track, so that was cool. And so Larry Huffman was the earlier day announcer. I think Flanders started and then Huffman took over. And Larry Huffman went ahead and gave Bill Cody that name, Wild Bill Cody. So one night the stands was full. There was lots of people at the Costa Mesa Bull Ring. And Larry Huffman's like, let's see, how can we get these guys excited? And then he said, okay. And when he did introduce Bill Cody, he said, Wild Bill Cody. And everybody loved it. That name stuck with Bill Cody. I mean, it just stayed with him forever. And even to this day, we know his name is Wild Bill Cody. And that name propelled Bill Cody to instant fame. Everybody liked who? Wild Bill Cody. He was cool. So the racers did really well back in those days, like we mentioned. They made 30% of the people entry into the Speedway. So every ticket that was bought, 30% of that went back to the riders, and that was really good. So if you had, let's say, $10 worth of ticket, the riders would get like $3 or $3.50 each per ticket. And then the riders had the purse. If they won the main event or the main event or the scratch semi, the handicap semi, their heat race, they all made money for that. So every race, it was money plus the 35% of the gate. That was done by the SRA because they're following the rule book back in 1969. So that was really great. And Bill Cody actually was racing all over the place. Promoters, they wanted Bill to race like at all these tracks, and they paid Bill like $250 every time he went and raced at a different track. They would fly Bill on airplane, let's say to some like Reno, Nevada or something. Then Bill would race, they'd get a bike for him, and then he'd come home, and then he made like $250 every time he raced, plus whatever he made racing. And they did that at Santa Ana Speedway when he went ahead and raced there later on. We're going to talk about that one. So that was pretty cool. And Bill raced like 100 meetings every year. Can you imagine that? Bill Cody was like riding 100 nights a year. That's a lot of seat time and a lot of laps on that old body of his. He wasn't old. He was young back then. He could ride 100 nights a year. Don't we wish this year, you guys, with the COVID, that we could have ride 100 times this year? That would have been fantastic, but we got like 8 rides or 7 rides, something, maybe less. So people back in those days, especially Cody, was riding 100 nights a year. That's pretty good. I like that one. So that's happening there. And he was a member of the Team US, went over to Australia, New Zealand, Israel, and Africa, and Bill Cody was riding those long tracks, especially in Australia, New Zealand. They have really long tracks back in those places. In Costa Mesa and California, they're kind of more smaller, but when you go over to Australia, New Zealand, they're really long tracks. I mean, you got to fast. And so Bill Cody, being a flat tracker, he really liked it in Australia and New Zealand, and he was going really, really fast. And he went ahead and was like the high point rider. He was just cleaning up because he enjoyed it. And he was beating like these top riders like Ivan Major and Barry Briggs. I mean, Bill Cody was like wiping these guys out. It was really good. And they asked Bill, like, why do you do so good? And he was just good on the long tracks because he liked those from those early days of the TT experience. Bill was just an expert long track rider with those the TT mile, the half mile. So going fast was nothing for Bill Cody, and he went really fast in his young days. When I was a little kid, I was at the movie theater. My mom worked at a movie theater, and I got to go to movies for free. And I was sitting in the movie theater like this, and there was this movie called Cars or something like that. It was about a motorcycle sidecar rider. It was only played for a week, and it was gone. And so I was in the movie theater because my mom would work there, and I would go watch all the movies for free. And then they had like a sidecar Speedway movie, and that was cool. I like that. That was before I even hardly knew much about Speedway. I went to a couple of Costa Mesa races. That's all. And then I saw Wild Bill Cody in that movie, and Bill Cody was racing the long track in Australia, I believe. And they had a race, and Bill Cody just smoked everybody. And I was like, that's Wild Bill Cody. I was watching the movie, and I was like, hey, I know that guy. He rides at Costa Mesa, and he was really fast. So Bill Cody was a movie star, and he probably never knew about it. I saw that movie. I don't know if you can find it anymore. It's called like Side Hacks or Sidecars, or I don't remember, something like that. It was a story about a couple sidecar races. It was really a nice movie, and it was filmed in Australia. So, and in 1971 and 70, he went ahead and became the top money earner in Costa Mesa. Bill Cody was the top point getter and the top money earner, both. So he was cleaning up. He's made thousands. I don't know how much he made. He probably made like $70,000 in 1970 and 71. That's a lot of money. That's like $500,000 today. Bill Cody was making a lot of money. That was cool. And then he was in the top 5 from like 72 to 1975. Bill Cody was like always in the top 5 in points and money. So Bill Cody was basically a rich Speedway rider, if you didn't know that. And going back to Australia, the promoter in Australia, they went ahead and they asked Bill Cody to race there for the season. Why? Because Bill Cody was really good. He was like beating all the top dogs. So, and Bill Cody said, no, because I got to go back to Costa Mesa because they didn't pay as well in Australia. So Cody said, bye, I'm going back and making money. And so he left Australia and came back home and really cleaned up at Costa Mesa. He's a good businessman, like I say, and he's a really smart guy. And so, but there was 2 riders, early day riders, that stayed at the Australian track. They rode in Australia from what the history book said. And that was, one was Scott Autry. We're trying to get Scott on this program, but he's very shy. Scott doesn't want to go on the webcam. I think he doesn't want to show the girls just how beautiful he really is. Scott Autry is a gorgeous hunk. He's a gorgeous babe, and he doesn't want to come on the webcam. We love you, Scott Autry. He's a good friend, and we have a lot of fun together chatting, and we make a lot of good humor with Scott Autry. And another guy that went ahead and stayed in the Australian Speedway League was the famous early day rider, Greg Hazarat. Do you know who Greg Hazarat is? He was an early day pioneer like Cody and Sonny Nutter and all these guys. And Greg Hazarat was just a really good rider, and he was a top level rider. And Greg Hazarat is going to be on our show soon. He wants to come on. He's like, hey, get me on. So we're going to bring you on, Greg, really soon. And have a bunch of other riders that want to come on. But Greg Hazarat really was a great rider, and he stayed and raced in Australia. We'll ask him find out. It might have been New Zealand, but I think it was Australia. So we're going to talk to him about that, and we're going to see exactly what happened. So Bill Cody was just really doing well, in the early 70s. He was cleaning up, winning everything. He was getting really rich, Bill Cody. He was like smoking out there. And he won the first Costa Mesa Fair Derby. And he just was undefeated in this King of the Hill Cup. They had, in the early days, they had like a King of the Hill match race champion. They had 2 laps, and then the guys would race, and then the winner of the 2 laps would be the king, and he would race the next week. He won the whole season being the king. He never lost one match race the whole season. He was good. And I had a chance to race in the Cody era, so I have to tell you that story. You want to hear about that, don't you? And in the mid-70s was my first meeting at the Costa Mesa Fairground. I was a D3 raw 16-year-old rookie, really. And I got the program. I was on the program my first time. I was like, oh, hold on. Oh, I'm a pro speedway rider and I ride D3. I was happy. And here's Bill Cody on the cover that night when I was racing. And he was leading the Rocket, Rick Woods. Bill Cody was on the program in my first race at Costa Mesa. See, it's his first Speedway race. His first Speedway race. That was my first Speedway race. He was famous, and he was on this. I always kept this my first race. I'm not going to let this go. If a fire burns my house, I'm taking my program with me. Forget the house. I want the program. And this program's really cool if you open it up. And if you go to Heat 11, I show people this all the time. There's Dennis. Where are we at here? There's a young Dennis Sigalos, number 228. And there's a Brian over there. And I was racing on the 0-yard line. And Dennis was racing on the 10-yard line. And I raced Dennis Sigalos. I was a raw rookie. I was like a Division 4 rider at the time. I was no good. And Dennis Sigalos had practiced with all those times with Penhall over at his dad's place over in Anaheim. And Sigalos was a D1 ripper. He won the main event by like a mile. And I just totally got wiped out by Sigalos. I didn't have that small uniform on from Ron Taylor. And I had no gloves. I raced with my bare knuckles and stuff. I'm like, hey, I'm a Speedway rider. And good thing I didn't crash very hard. I would have like wrecked my hand. But I was racing in the first race with Dennis Sigalos, and Bill Cody was on that program. So that was really a lot of fun. And it was just really a good time in Speedway. Cody, like I said, was in the glory days of Speedway. That was just the amazing times. The money was there. And then something happened, and I talk about that sometimes. And then Harry Oxley went ahead and cut the SRA and the 30% of the entry gate purse. And so people got mad, everyone had a protest. Mike Bass protested, Bill Cody, Doug Farrell, Jerry Fairchild, me, and all the top riders. Everybody was protesting. Why? Because they knew that the glory days of Speedway would quickly come to an end. And they did. So that was really sad. And Bill Cody went ahead and he hung up his uniform, his shoes, his steel shoe. I think his steel shoes over at Jeans over there in Las Vegas at the Hall of Fame. And Bill Cody, he just went ahead and kind of quit. And then he said, I'm not going to race no more. I'm done. He made all this money. Because Bill Cody knew that there wasn't going to be that much money in Speedway. And so he said, booey. And so he quit. And then Louis Cassuth, do you know Louis Cassuth, over at the Santa Ana Bowl, the Speedway, he went ahead and contacted Bill Cody. And he said, hey, Bill, do you want to race at our track in Santa Ana Bowl? And Bill was like, pay me $250 a night and I will race. So I think Louis paid Bill show-up money, and Bill Cody was there. Actually, I was on the first night program. I thought I was going to be in D1 because I had a lot of success at the D1 tracks, all the D1. I had won like 6 or more handicap mains D1. And then they had the strike and everything went bad, and it kind of ruined my Speedway career, actually. That Speedway strike and everything ruined everything. But I went ahead and raced at the Santa Ana Bowl that next year, and they went ahead and put me in Division 2 to start the racetrack. And I was really mad. I was pissed off. I went ahead and told Louis, like, hey, why do you put me in D2? I won a whole stack of D1 mains, and then you stick me in D2. Very nice. I made a blog here. It's called No Respect. No respect at all. And it's really a famous blog that YouTube promotes. I don't know why, but a lot of people watch it. It has a 85-90% retention rate. It's really one of my #1 most watched videos as far as all the way through. And so I was pissed off, and then Bill Cody was racing in D1 and a scratch and handicap program. And that opening night, this was at the Santa Ana Bowl, Bill Cody won the scratch main in D1, and I won the scratch main in D2, and I got bumped up to D1 the next week. And I went ahead and I have this clipping from Cycle News that was original clipping. It says, I won the second division and Cody were the tops at Santa Ana. I was so mad that night. I was going to show you this. I did this wheelie, this big wheelie, and I fell after I won the main event, and I wrecked my motorcycle. The crowd was cheering, and it was really exciting. That's in the blog, No Respect. And I got the safety instructions from the referee. But I became a crowd favorite opening night with Cody over there at Santa Ana Bowl when I did this wheelie. The crowd went bananas as Brian crossed the finish line with his main event win, and it was a disaster. My only crash all year was a wheelie. I hit one of those ruts, at the starting line, and the bike went, wow, wow. I jumped off, and then I like, to the crowd, and I'm like bowing, and the people are like, we like that guy. So I became a crowd favorite that opening night, and Bill Cody won that the scratch main. So that was really, and then they bumped me up the next week. I'm like, oh no, I got to race Bill Cody. He's like really hard to beat. But I got lucky, and I actually finished that season with a lot of main event wins, and that was a 60-yard line rider, and I was the #1 point getter in Division I. I started the season in D2 very angrily, and I finished that season as the #1 rider in D1 in points. That was pretty good. I like that one. So that's exactly what happened in the old days. And Bill Cody went ahead and pretty much retired after the Santa Ana Bowl. He was kind of getting tired. He made his money, so he didn't have to race with all of us young lions. We had really good riders back in those days because we had John Cowboy Cook John and I were fighting it out all the time, and Denny Pyatt, he was a young rider, and we were fighting it out, and there were so many good riders. Cody was there, and so many good riders, and then Mike Bloom was always racing and doing well, and there was just a whole list of riders that came. Radical Randy Marsh was there, and gosh, let's see, who else was there? There's quite a Randy Lewis, and there was just a lot of guys. It was an AMA track, so that was a lot of fun. And that was Bill's last season around the quarter-mile Speedway track at the Santa Ana Bowl. I think that was the first quarter-mile track for Speedway in United States history that I know, at least modern-day history anyways. And it's a long track, and I liked going fast like Bill Cody, and I had a very successful year. And Bill Cody did good too. I mean, he was a good rider. And then he hung up his still shoe and he gave it to Gene Woods, I think. So that's how that worked. And Bill, like I say, was getting a lot of money, and a lot of the young riders were working really hard to compete against Cody. So after that season, Bill started like building motorcycles, selling parts and stuff. That was in like 79. And then 1980, Bill went ahead and bought the distribution for the Jawa motorcycle in America. Bill was the sole distributor for the Jawa motorcycles, I believe, from Czechoslovakia in Europe. And Bill bought all the parts and all the bikes, and it was a lot of money. I think a lot of that money that Bill earned riding Speedway in the 70s, he saved smart. Then he bought the Jawa distributorship with all that money, all that loot that he made when he was racing Speedway. So that's exactly what happened there. And he was really doing well. And then everybody knows Bill Cody from all the parts, stuff. So if you didn't know Bill Cody from the race days, you know Bill Cody from like buying the parts and buying the Speedway bikes, the Bill Cody racing products. It's in Garden Grove, California, And I think Bill is retired now, and his son Bobby, he runs the Cody products now, and I think Bill is like going fishing or something. He has like a 30-foot fishing boat, and he goes out to Dana Point, California, all the time, and he goes fishing for the big fish out in the ocean. So that's really cool. And Bill Cody invited me to go fishing with him because I like to go fishing out there too before. And I used to go shark fishing with my friend Javier, and we used to go for the big sharks, the big mako sharks out there at Dana Point. We go to San Onofre, and it was really cool. And Bill Cody does that with his 30-foot sports fishing boat right now. So he just loves those boats nowadays. And he just became successful really because of his loving wife, Franny. Franny was all those years, she was by his side. And Franny was just really a loving wife. She's still around today, so I shouldn't say was. She is a loving wife today. And she's really a great lady. We always liked Franny, got to know her back in the early days at the pit. I think she worked with Frida and all those people in the pit. Franny was really a great lady. And she was Bill Cody's right-hand, not man, woman. She was a right-hand woman. Franny was awesome. And behind every good man is a really good woman. So that was it. And Bill Cody's a really good man. So Franny really has a lot of credit for that. So Bill is, like I say, he's one of the most respected people in the sport. Everybody likes, oh, Wild Bill Cody. He's really great. And he's just truly a living legend. I mean, Bill Cody is like one of the early day pioneers of the Speedway from 1969. He raced in the 70s. He sells the motorcycles. I mean, Bill Cody never got out of Speedway pretty much until his retirement. And like I say, the Bill Cody product is really the top distributor in the United States for the Jawa motorcycles. And I think, like I say, his son, Bobby, he runs that shop now. From what I heard, I don't know, I haven't been there lately, but I heard that Bobby runs that particular shop. And Bill Cody will always be remembered by everyone who crosses his path. And so Bill Cody is just indeed the true and living legend of Speedway. And we love Bill Cody very much. He's a good friend. We go out and we talk a lot when I was there, in his shop. And Bill Cody is just the nicest guy. I don't think he has an enemy. Bill Cody likes everybody. So thank you so much for watching this live stream about the living legend, Bill Cody. And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and like this particular video if you like it. And we want to go ahead and thank you so much for watching this show. We have lots of guests coming up. I mentioned Greg Hazaroff. We have Larry Huffman. I mean, the list is really big. I think we're trying to get Michael Bass. I mean, Michael Bass does no interviews. And Gene Woods asked Michael Bass yesterday if he would come on my show. And I said, yeah, Michael Bass. We love Michael Bass. Michael Fast Bass. I mean, the living legend. The greatest American Speedway rider ever in the modern day was who? Mike Bass. So we're really excited if we can land that big fish because it would be an amazing interview. And we just love and respect Mike like to the end of the world. So we got lots of riders. We got a whole stack. We got Eric. I mean, there's just a list. We have Bruce, the Fox coming on. I mean, we're stacked full of good riders, and we're doing these blogs highlighting the riders too. So thank you so much for watching the live stream, and we appreciate your time, and we enjoyed the show today. So from the Beehive, we want to thank you, and have a great day. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next show.